At the start of 2020, I found myself fresh out of college and ready to take on the world. And then an outbreak happened. Almost instantly, the world lost its carefree attitude and became anxious, confused, and afraid. This fear would quickly lead to social discourse. Soon after, lockdowns started being imposed everywhere. Optional at first, although quickly becoming mandatory. The world seemingly stopped overnight. And I quickly found myself applying to jobs that weren't hiring. Fast forward to 2021. After a very eventful day sitting around my apartment quarantining, I found myself online with a couple of my friends. During the night, we found ourselves talking about everything from our lives and upcoming things we're excited for to the current job market. Our conversation eventually led to the Moldy Wop Rat by Burger King, which had recently won an award. Several, in fact. This led to how over 50% of my portfolio at the time was dedicated to food in some way or another. We jokingly started talking about other food-related projects I could do, and that's when I heard the two fateful words for the first time. Golden Glizzy. I was never a big fan of award shows. Quite frankly, I never liked how celebrities would often use it as an opportunity to be either self-congratulatory or to hypocritically preach on a subject, all while viewers were being sold to through expensive ads. While Hollywood and everything associated with it is often seen as being larger than life, they too would be affected by the pandemic. This would become very apparent when the 2021 Oscars aired to its lowest viewership ever. Between all the major global events that happened within the past year, no one seemed to care about the Oscars anymore. It was then I realized something. The idea that Glizzies was tossed around as an awards show, so why not have it just be a parody of them? The key difference being that it would just drop the SJW undertones that were present in the Oscars and just focus on entertaining people. As for the award, it would be able to be won by anyone, for just about anything. With this being said, I knew three things right away. Being an award show, there had to be an award to give away. For my own reasons, it had to resemble a hot dog, and it had to be gold. Up until this point, all I knew was the Adobe suite, and upon figuring out this rather simple list of requirements, I hit a wall. How was I gonna make this happen? After about a week of brainstorming ways to create a photorealistic ad that was flexible enough to be used in various types of ad work, I would eventually realize the inevitable. I would have to learn 3D. So I went to the only place a college graduate could go to learn anything after graduating. Over the following 2 weeks, I spent over 80 hours learning everything I could about 3D modeling. And it was all so I could do this. Yep, and that's a hot dog. Now that I learned the basics of modeling, I had to put it to use and design the award. My original sketches were, for lack of a better word, generic. Some of the sketches included a hot dog on a plate, a hot dog award plaque, and a literal ketchup bottle. Nothing that really said hot dog award. After a few days, I would be inspired to sketch out this, and it showed promise, although it wouldn't be until finding these two videos that I would have a breakthrough. What was interesting about these two videos was the way both heroes held their hot dogs. While it could be argued that it was coincidental that both instances showed hot dogs being held similarly, it was enough to make me wonder, how do you hold a hot dog? So I googled it, and I found a pretty definitive answer. Upon seeing this, I thought it was pretty obvious what the award design should be, so I sketched it out. And it showed the most promise, or at least more promise than an award shaped like a catcher bottle. Honestly, who would want to win that? So I moved forward with modeling this design, and this was the final result. But I felt I didn't do enough, so I ended up making another award, and then another, and another. Keeping with the alliteration of the original award, I named these additional awards as well. Once I was done designing these additional awards, I felt a sense of accomplishment. I felt that I could finally sit back and rest. Only a few seconds after I turned off my laptop, I realized it didn't have a logo for the project. I mean, it's not like I was going to expand the project anymore, so I didn't exactly need one, right? Right? So here are the logos I sketched out, and this is how they looked when I took them into Illustrator to play around with some more. I wanted the logo to be simple and elegant, really something that was capable of fitting in with pre-existing award shows, while also having its own personality. With this in mind, I ended up making the most generic logo possible, and I hated it. At one point, I even recall saying to myself, I need more Glizzy. So I modified the logo to look more like a hot dog. I did this by adding a rounded rectangle. But then the type didn't feel right, so I tried to modify that as well, to resemble something closer to words written in ketchup or mustard. After a couple more modifications and a few applied effects later, we got this. At this point, I was all in. I had the logo and the awards. I might as well full send and create some ads. So I did, and I started with the print. For an award show that is meant to highlight the everyday person, it was imperative that I showcase that this was an award that anyone could win. So I created simple ads that just showcased the award and stated how it was able to be won by anyone. I even made a small animation to go alongside with it on social media. The ads were hopefully just ambiguous enough to provoke people to look up what the Glizzies were. With this, I moved on to digital. I somehow found myself back in Blender, attempting to create a commercial without any real knowledge how to do so. What I did know, however, was the following. Additionally, I already had the assets I needed, and I even had a rough idea. Bash award shows. Heavily inspired by the movie Flashdance, I took my Glizzies and started animating. In an attempt to replicate the famous scene from the movie, I attempted to learn physics. Emphasis on attempted. All I wanted to do was have hot dogs fall from the sky and bounce off the ground. And, well, it didn't turn out exactly how I wanted it to. I couldn't get the physics to work in my favor, so I ended up keying each individual asset, and it drove me insane. This was the initial result, although I would eventually redo the video just to update some issues I had with it, such as lighting and changing it to a horizontal format for YouTube. The final video is actually up on the channel and viewable here. Eventually I'd figure out physics, just enough to allow it to rain hot dogs and have them fall through the ground into the abyss below. This would allow me to create my original intended ad, which is also on the channel. All these ads were working towards the award show, so I thought it was time to make it feel real, and I felt that the quickest way to achieve this was to show people winning the award. After a quick Google search, I was able to find this image of Will Ferrell accepting an award. Although I liked the image, I quickly realized that the angle he was holding his award didn't match the angle of mine. so I re-rendered my award. With a bit more time in Photoshop, I was able to turn the original image into this. With this being said, I noticed that it lacked a nameplate, so I created one using assets from the logo I made. The typeface of the name didn't seem to match the overall aesthetic of the nameplate, so I ended up extrapolating the effect used on the logo type and created a pseudo typeface. I wanted to flesh out the idea a bit more, so I spent a little bit more time finding images of people for online social posts. I'd eventually find these. It was clear I needed to re-render the award again, so I did. A couple of times in fact. I loaded up Photoshop once more and got to work. I added my newly acquired photos and proceeded to cut out the backgrounds, and maybe cried a little bit when select subject failed me. I pushed on, however, and eventually cut out all the images. I then added the respective awards, and proceeded to cut out and replace what I needed to in order to make the composition work. After about an hour of modifying each image using various methods, the final results looked like they could be passed off as real. I placed the comps on a black background and added descriptive copy that highlighted who the person was, which award they won, and why. I applied the same neon glow effect seen from the logo, and even applied the same type treatment to the names as I did on the previous mockup. The lockup looked great, but the background, not so much. So I made an effort to improve on that by adding to the general atmosphere of the composition. First by including neon line art, then by applying the glow effect and overlaying color to resemble light reflection. Lastly, by adding some stock photography to add to the overall ambience. Once I saw the final outcome of these social posts, I felt that the initial print ads I made were absolute trash. I mean, look at this, and then this. And now back to this. There's no consistency, and it kept nagging at me until I simply updated it. With this final update, I looked over my work one more time, thinking about all the hours I dedicated to creating multiple ads and mockups, and I thought to myself, man, I need a nap.